Etsy or Shopify? That's the big question. Now, if you're watching this video and you've clicked on it, then it means that you're interested in either selling on Etsy or Shopify and you just don't know which one to start, and that's absolutely fine. In this video, we're going to be going over the Shopify pros and cons and the Etsy pros and cons and deciding when is the best time to start each of these. Let's not waste any time. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let's get straight into it. So, I'm not going to start off with the pure basics of what is Shopify, what is Etsy. I'm going to assume that you already know this, and we'll go straight into the Shopify pros and cons. So, starting off with the Shopify pros. Now, Shopify is a very powerful e-commerce tool. You get all this access to all the analytics and the database. It's easy to use and things like that, and you've got all the statistics, and all the tools are basically there for you, and if they're not, you can add them on as well. With the Shopify system, you can basically monitor and track your orders, monitor and track your inventory if you're holding any, and this is a really powerful tool for any starting business. Shopify is built for all store types, whether you're a small business just starting out, whether you're a big business, huge brands. Shopify is great for all of these situations, so it's very adaptive and it can see you through just starting out as a dropshipper to establishing an actual brand. The other pro is that you can basically sell an unlimited amount of items on Shopify. You can sell whatever you want, whatever your heart desires. You can sell as many of it as you possibly want, and that's great. You can basically list whatever you want on your website because it is your website, it's your business. You can sell whatever you want, which is a great pro. So going over the cons of Shopify, and you'll see how this ties in when we go over Etsy, but basically Shopify doesn't help you with the exposure. You have to find your own method to drive traffic to your website. Shopify will not help you do this. Now, Shopify do have tools to assist you in this process. For example, if you decide to use Facebook marketing to drive traffic, you can sync up with your Shopify store. Same with Google Ads and things like that. So they do give you the tools to assist you in that aspect, but unlike Etsy that have their own marketplace that drive traffic themselves, Shopify, you're responsible for driving the traffic. They'll give you the tools to help you, but you are solely responsible for getting the traffic to your website. Now, the only other con I can think of for Shopify is basically the cost of all the add-ons. So yes, they have access to all these tools. You can get SEO tools, search engine optimization. You can get upsells, bundles, email marketing, phone marketing, live chats, looks, reviews, everything like that. You can get all these amazing tools that are going to help your conversion rates and help you get sales, but all these add-ons do often cost money, do often cost subscriptions, and they can add up. Now, if you're a moderate or even a large size business and you're building a brand, then this isn't going to be much of a big issue for you. You're going to be making sales and you can afford to invest in these apps. But Shopify kind of appeals to that starter seller, to that new dropshipper, that new entrepreneur, and that person doesn't often have a lot of money to be spending on apps and add-ons and things like that. They want to be spending their money on marketing and getting sales, not apps which are basically going to ramp up the monthly cost of running that store when there's no proof of concept. There's no proof that that store is actually going to be successful yet, but they're still expected to pay for all these add-ons and subscriptions, so that can act as a big deterrent. Now, moving to the pros of Etsy. So first off is the exposure. Unlike Shopify, Etsy will help you drive traffic because they're their own marketplace and they have traffic going towards the marketplace on a daily basis. Etsy run ads themselves. They have TV adverts, they have Facebook ads, and they do very well on the Google ad searches as well. So their popularity is going to drive traffic in your direction. It's just up to you to optimize your keywords, to optimize your listings. Check out this video where I go over how to optimize your listing, and that will basically drive traffic to your store, to your listing, and help you get sales without you spending any money on ads. The next pro of Etsy is that it's very easy to use. You can get started in about 15 to 20 minutes. You just put your store name, you register up to Etsy, and then you can get a listing up in about 15 minutes, which is really good. Whereas Shopify, you have to set up your store, you have to design your store. You can pay someone to do this, but again, it's adding to that cost. So it's just entirely up to you. But yeah, Etsy is very easy to set up. Anyone can get started in about 15 to 20 minutes. The final pro of Etsy is that it's relatively low cost. There's no subscription fee like there is for Shopify. There are transaction fees and listing fees, but overall, if you're not making sales, you're not paying for that platform. You're not paying for your right to list on that platform. It's completely free. you're only paying when you start making sales. Having a low cost startup is really appealing to people who just want to dip their feet into online e-commerce, who are just experimenting and starting out, because they're not subscribing to a monthly fee. So it's very appealing in that aspect. Now, moving on to the cons of Etsy. So the first one you've got is lack of creative control. Unlike Shopify, you can't design your store, you can't really set up your own brand through Etsy. There's no way to add in your own creative spark. Yes, you can add your profile picture and your cover photo, but you don't have nearly as much creative control as you do on Shopify, where you can basically design your whole website through their platform. There are fewer tools to help you grow your following on Etsy, like you're going through their platform. So unless you're going to do ads, which if you are, you may as well go with Shopify unless your product's handmade and suits the Etsy audience. But unless you're going to do ads, then there's no tools that you can utilize on Etsy which will grow your following. Whereas on Shopify, you've got all these add-ons and apps, and yes, some of them do cost money, but the tools are there to help you grow your following. Now, arguably the biggest con of Etsy is the product restrictions. You are restricted as to what you can sell on Etsy. You can't full on dropship on Etsy unless you have a production partner and you disclose that in your listing. Etsy have a lot of rules and guidelines. Check out my video here where I'll go over a few of them. But basically, things like vintage items need to meet a certain criteria. Things like handmade items need to meet a certain criteria. And they're very strict on specifically what you can sell. You can't sell mass manufactured items or anything like that. So it's something to be aware of, and it's a large part of your decision making. Whether I want to go Etsy or Shopify entirely depends on your product, what kind of niche you want to get in. And if it's a niche which includes a lot of mass manufactured products that won't suit Etsy audience, then you're left with no choice but to avoid Etsy. Now, the final con of choosing Etsy over Shopify is that you do have transaction fees. These are currently 5%. They are going up to 6%. Like, I'll post my video here where I talk about it and how this impacts you. But basically, those fees are going up to 6%. And it might not impact you as you first start off, but when you start seeing consistent sales, then you will start seeing a dent in your profits. And it's going to affect your decision on basically what kind of profit margin are you looking at, how much money do you want to be making. Realistically, are these transaction fees going to impact you enough for you to decide, actually, I'll be better off with Shopify? Those are the main pros and cons for those platforms, but we are going to go over a few other points. And these are basically going to help you in your decision making. So the first one is that Etsy is an online marketplace for handmade and unique products. With Shopify, you can sell absolutely anything. You've got Etsy attracting 33 million customers on average to its online marketplace, whereas Shopify, you have to drive your own traffic, you have to build your own brand, and you have to take ownership of marketing and driving traffic to your website. Now, Etsy doesn't have any monthly costs, but then Shopify becomes more cost effective as you start making sales. Then your average cost goes down, and then it becomes more cost effective as you get started. But initially, Etsy doesn't have any monthly costs, and Shopify is more costly to begin with. Shopify has a more versatile and wide variety toolkit to help you grow your following, and it's got all these tools at your disposal, whereas Etsy doesn't have this. Shopify has a 24/7 customer support service, whereas Etsy have operating hours, so it's a little bit hit and miss depending where you're operating from and when you need that support. But you got to remember that YouTube is also out there, so it's entirely up to you. The next one is that Shopify has more payment options for you to choose from, whereas Etsy doesn't have payment options. I think you've got Etsy and then you've got Etsy Pro or Etsy Plus. They're basically the two options. So you're kind of limited on scalability with Etsy, whereas with Shopify, you can pick a plan that suits your business growth. As you start growing, you can then improve on the Shopify plan and go from there. Now, the final point I'm going to make is that Shopify allows you to use your own web domain. So basically set up your own page and have your own business on your own website. Whereas with Etsy, you will always be selling on Etsy. You will be a store on Etsy, and this can impact your decision on which platform you want to pick. So moving on to when to pick which platform, like hands down, going through the pros and cons, Shopify probably has the most benefits, that you're able to scale, and as a competing platform for a growing business, Shopify is probably the one for you. Not going to lie, that's straight up. Shopify has the more benefits, and for a business wanting to grow, it's got to be Shopify hands down. So if you are going to grow and scale a business and that's your objective from the start, then by all means Shopify is the one for you. But there are times when to use Etsy, and we'll go over these now. So Etsy should be your first call if you're a new seller not selling a mass manufactured item. So this is with people with minimal inventories, either selling print on demand or digital products, and for people who have a production partner. So maybe you've contacted someone through AliExpress and now you're having a hand in the production, whether that's design, color, size, or anything like that. You now have a production partner and you can sell on Etsy. If you meet all the Etsy guidelines in terms of your product restrictions and you're fairly new, then Etsy might be a good stepping stone just for you to dip your toe in and to get a proof of concept and just to see if your product works. Etsy already connects you to an audience that's interested in unique and handmade and personalized items. So if your product or your niche falls into that category, you've already got an audience being driven to potentially your business, to your website. It's just waiting for you to slot in there with your listing and optimize your keywords, and you can start selling straight off the bat. You don't need marketing, you don't need to do Facebook influencers or TikTok or anything like that. The traffic is already there and it's organic, so it's going to cost you less than if it was to be on it. Shopify, so that's something to consider. It basically depends on your niche and your approach to the situation. Now, if you're still stuck on whether to decide over Shopify or Etsy, then why not pick both? You can use Etsy as a stepping stone, as a proof of concept, as your beginning step into e-commerce and online selling. And then once you've got proof of concept, once you know that something works and that there's an audience for it, you can then go on to Shopify. Now, full disclosure, I did this the other way around. I have Shopify stores, I was selling items, I advertised a handmade item and I had a production partner for it, and it just wasn't selling. It wasn't doing well on Facebook ads, it wasn't doing well on the Shopify store, and it was in the gift niche and it should have been making sales, but it just wasn't working on my Shopify store. So I heard about Etsy, heard about selling on Etsy, so I listed it. It took me about 20-25 minutes. List the item, and within, I think it took 5 days for my first sale of that item, and then within about a month it was making more sales on Etsy than it ever did on my Shopify store, which had been running for 3 or 4 months. So there's no traditional way to do this. You can go from Shopify to Etsy. No one's going to sue you. You can go Etsy to Shopify. It's entirely up to you. If you are a new beginner in the space already set up on Shopify, give Etsy a go. Don't give up on Shopify, but just give Etsy a go, especially if you're selling products that can overlap onto another platform. Then why not go for it? Like, you're not risking anything and you might benefit from the rewards. Now, one thing I will say is that if you're starting on Etsy, then do go over the product guidelines, and I'll put my step-by-step to Etsy dropshipping there, because they can be quite strict and you need to get off on the right foot with Etsy. With Shopify, if you get started, then you need to be aware that it is a business. It is something that you're going to be spending a lot of time. It's not as passive as it is with Etsy, where you're just listing items and fulfilling orders on a daily basis. With Shopify, you are responsible for the marketing, driving traffic, customer support, privacy policy, everything like that. You are setting up a business. So just bear that in mind going into it. That's all for me, folks. I hope you learned something new in the video. If you did, then drop a like and subscribe to the channel. I post every week without fail. I talk about e-commerce, dropshipping, Etsy, investing, crypto, all that good stuff. If you've got any questions, do hit them down below because I'll answer every single one of them. Thanks ever so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.